Okay, awesome. All right. Welcome everyone to the UF Association of Hispanic Alumni and the Hispanic Student Association's Prepárate Caiman webinar. My name is Ladiz Poro, and I'm on the board for AHA, and I'm currently serving as the Student Engagement Chair, along with Jonathan Santana, which you'll hear from in a second, and Gabby.
Hi everyone, my name is Gabby Garibaldi and I am the Co-Alumni Director for the 2023 to 2024 HSA Operations Cabinet.
So we're so excited to hold this space for students and alumni to connect. Our goal is to grow that connection into mentorship, seeing as this event was truly driven by the students at HSA right now at UF that showed a great interest in careers related to political science and the law. So on that note, all opinions and statements made tonight are the individuals and not the University of Florida's. So Gabby's going to go ahead and help us introduce everyone who helped put this together. And we're going to try to make it brief so we can get into the questions and keep this in our hour long session.
First, I would like to introduce Jonathan Santana.
Hi, everybody. First, I want to say a special thank you to Ladiz for putting this all together, as well as the entire HSA team. My name is Jonathan Santana, and I am also on the board of AHA, serving as the secretary on the executive committee. A little bit about AHA. Basically, it's an organization which is trying to promote Hispanic heritage and culture for students and alumni. Our mission is basically to, foster a conversation, help them kind of align together. And through signature events such as GGG, which will be happening in June, and also donors, we're fortunate enough to offer a lot of scholarships to students, which, is one of the passions of mine. And that will be beginning towards the end of this year, beginning of next year. And lastly, before we move on, there's another very important program called Conexiones. You will be hearing more about that in the coming weeks, but essentially it's a mentorship program where students and alumni, can connect when a student has a like-minded kind of goal or roadmap. And yeah, basically we kind of pair them up and kind of foster that collaboration between the two of them. So, yep. Thank you.
Then I would like to introduce Mariana, who unfortunately cannot speak because her microphone isn't working, but she is the Vice President of Operations. And a little bit about HSA. We are the premier Hispanic Latinx student serving organization at the University of Florida. It is the go-to organization for all students wishing to learn and connect with the Hispanic community at UF and the greater Gainesville area. We really hope to celebrate our Hispanic and Latinx roots among our ever-growing familia and help the advancement of our community. Now, I would like to introduce Armando, who is our co-alumni director.
Hello, everyone. My name is Armando Cruz, and I'm the other co-alumni director for HSA for this year.
And then we have Rachel, who also cannot speak right now, but she is working tech for us and is the AED of the Operations Cabinet. And now we would like to introduce our panelists. Armando will go ahead and introduce the first three.
Alrighty, so our first panelist is Jose Gonzalez. Mr. Gonzalez is the Director of Government and Industry Relations for Walt Disney Parks and Resorts. Previously worked as a Region VP State Affairs for Anheuser-Busch Companies and as the Vice President of Governmental Affairs for Associated Industries of Florida, AIF. He was also a legislative intern for the Office of Program Policy Analysis and Government Accountability. He graduated from UF both in 2000 with a degree in political science and a certificate in Latin American studies, as well as in 2003 when he received a Master of Arts degree in political science with a concentration in international development, public administration. While at UF, he founded and operated his own business, a publishing and event management company based in Gainesville, Florida. After successfully running this small business for several years, he sold the company to pursue his dream of working in government affairs. I would next like to introduce Ms. Anaili Triana. Ms. Triana is the founder and managing partner of Triana Law Firm. Before starting the firm, she began her career gaining significant experience in first-party property and civil litigation by representing some of the largest home insurance carriers in the state of Florida. Then she shifted her practice to representing homeowners against insurance carriers for their denied or underpaid home insurance claims. Triana Law Firm exclusively represents homeowners for their property damage claims as well as restoration and mitigation companies. She graduated from UF in 2010 with a BA from Nova Southeastern University with a Juris Doctor in 2015. And lastly, for this slide, Mr. Dan Canedo. Mr. Canedo is a senior corporate counsel at Olympus, a company in the television and media space based in West Palm Beach that provides content on the television networks with an extensive portfolio of Spanish language films and television series. He received his undergraduate degree from the University of Florida as a business major with a focus on marketing and a minor in Spanish. His graduate degree from the University of Florida with a master's in arts in international business. His law degree from the University of South Carolina and an ILM in intellectual property from George Washington University.
Now I would like to introduce you to the next three panelists, starting with Kathy Valle Palacios. She is the Senior Vice President of Public Policy at Strata Education Foundation, where she leads the development and analysis of a policy agenda that informs the Foundation's state and federal advocacy efforts. She served as a special assistant on education to President Biden and spent 5 years on the Democratic staff to the U.S. House Committee on Education and Labor. She played a central role in the developing post-secondary agenda, including increases in the federal Pell Grant during her tenure at the White House. She's also worked in the Peace Corps in the Dominican Republic. Ms. Palacios graduated with a BA in criminology from UF and received a master's in public policy and higher education from the University of Michigan. Then Gil Sanchez. Mr. Sanchez is a CEO, co-founder, and inventor for Pairing Well LLC in Tampa, Florida. The CEO, founder, and business advisor for Tempest Business Strategies, and the CEO and senior managing partner for BlackRock Trial Lawyers. He was a business broker for VIP Business Brokers, Better Business Brokers, and Transport Business Advisors from 2007 to 2016. Prior, he was an associate attorney at Stiles, Taylor, and Grace. He also worked as a domestic policy intern for U.S. Senator Bob Graham. Mr. Sanchez graduated from the University of Florida in 1999 with a BA in political science and a minor and certificate in Latin American studies. In 2003, he graduated from the UF Levin College of Law with his JD. And lastly, the Honorable Denise Martinez-Canciani. The Honorable Denise Martinez-Canciani is an associate administrative judge serving in the Unified Children's Court Division for the 11th Judicial Court, currently presiding over dependency, delinquency, domestic relations, and domestic violence cases. Prior, Denise had been in private practice for her own small firm for almost 20 years. She is a Florida Supreme Court certified family law mediator. Before starting her own firm, she worked as a high school teacher in Monsignor Pace High School, where she studied a law studies program, which included taking her students to mock trial competitions. She graduated the University of Florida with a BA in criminology and cum laude from the University of Florida Levin College of Law with her JD. Thank you to our panelists.
All right, thank you, Gabby and Armando. Thank you to each of our panelists for joining us this evening and for choosing to share your experiences and your advice with our Gator students. Before we begin, if everyone could just please remain muted and have your cameras on, that would make this discussion flow smoothly. And I'm pleased to welcome Armando as he starts off this discussion with tonight's first question.
Yes, so hello everyone again. This question is for all of our panelists, and we would love to know, what was your favorite spot on campus?
Do we go in any order? I guess I'll start. My favorite spot on campus was the set. I hope you guys still call it the set. I'm not sure. No?
What is the set? I personally haven't heard of it before.
Oh my gosh. I don't eat Turlington Plaza. The proper name.
Oh, okay.
Burlington Plaza. Yes, that was my favorite spot on campus. It used to be where everything was always going on. I was in a Latina sorority back when I was at UF. So it was definitely one of my favorite places to socialize. And usually things were always happening there. And that's where you learned where everything was going to happen over the weekend. So it was definitely my favorite part.
Well, I can jump in. I really enjoyed the Plaza of the Americas in front of Library West. You could usually get some free food there from the Hare Krishna group. It was just a really nice, chill, relaxed place. I'm not sure if they still do what they used to do. I feel like it was there so long ago. But that, and of course the French fries next to Marston Library, because I worked there in the library as a student, so that was a pretty cool place to just relax and have lunch and grab a quick bite.
I'll go next. I just loved hanging out at La Casita. It was my favorite place. It's the place where I felt like I was most at home, where all my friends would always go. So yeah, that was the spot for me.
I can go next. I agree. I definitely liked Turlington Plaza. The people watching was great there. There was always a lot going on. Another place that I really liked was just going to the stadium. Going at night to run stadiums. There's a lot of people there. It was pretty active. It was a lot of fun.
For me, I guess it was the Rights Union. I spent a lot of time in there with all the different organizations that we were part of, and it was kind of a second home because you could get to talk to all your friends who were going to their, I don't know, I'm assuming student government and student association like clubs still have offices up there on the, I think it was the third floor, but it was kind of like the hub of all the activity, and you kind of knew what was going on at the university at all times if you hung out there. So I spent quite a bit of time there at the Union, so I enjoyed that.
Guess I'll go. La Casita for sure was my go-to spot. I moved probably, I was there for 8 years, and I moved every single year from there. So 8 years I was moving around, but the one constant that I had was La Casita. So that was, I mean, you could go use a bathroom there, eat, hang out, find out what was going on, study, hold meetings, the whole bit. So love La Casita. And the fraternity as well. We were there on campus, and we were super close with all my fraternity brothers there. Actually, Jose and I, that's how he and I met, as fraternity brothers. And then the last spot, we did a lot of promotions there for about 4 or 5 years. So obviously downtown, we felt right at home. So depending on the nightclub that we were promoting, we loved that spot.
Awesome. Was that everybody? Did we get everybody? I believe we did. Yeah, like I see that, definitely a go-to. I would definitely agree with that. Awesome answers. So this next one, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. This question is for Mr. Gonzalez, Judge Martinez Scazinani, sorry, and Mrs. Valle Palacios. What challenges have you encountered to get where you are now?
I'm happy to go first, if you'd like. So I'm a first generation college grad, first in my family to attend college. So everything was pretty much self-funded. And additionally, when you're breaking into the legal industry, it wasn't that easy. I think it's easier now, but it wasn't that easy as a woman. And I'll never forget one of my first experiences going into a courtroom, where I'm, bringing my briefcase, rolling it in, and I have this just older, lawyer look at me, and he says, "Are you the court reporter?" No offense to court reporters, that's a great profession, but I looked at him and the assumption was I was the court reporter because I'm a woman, and I just turned to him and I said, "No, are you?" So there was a preconceived idea. And you know, if you're younger and you look a certain way, you know, it's almost those extra steps that you really have to prove yourself in a lot of respects to break into an area where you're normally not seen. And so that, I would say, or the two biggest challenges that I faced getting here.
I'll go next. You know, for me personally, I think UF prepared me incredibly well to sort of take on all the different functions that I've had and different roles and positions that I had. And so I think challenges really were personal challenges, right? You know, just self-motivation to achieve, you know, different career goals and you know, being involved in different industries or whatever. So, you know, I've been very lucky in that regard that, you know, my journey has been filled with a lot of success just because I feel like UF prepared me for that, right? All the work that we did at student government, all of the work that we did with our student associations and just, you know, our classes and our courses. You know, I came out of UF, you know, again, I was there also for a master. So I was there, you know, I had several years under my belt, but, you know, I came out ready to go, right? And I felt kind of all the opportunities were out there for me to achieve. So, you know, again, just having that self-motivation and trying to, you know, keep pushing to improve really where, you know, being able to overcome those or desire to not really do anything or just kind of stay where you are. That's what I would say.
I think for me, it was around navigating spaces that were really white. So I went to the University of Michigan for grad school. It's a predominantly white institution. And just feeling like, I remember people were like, oh, you should run for student government. You know, we really need people of color in student government because there wasn't a lot of representation. So feeling like I had to take a lot more responsibility just to be able to represent the Latino community or people of color generally, in addition to all the other work that I was, you know, already doing and taking on for myself and for the university. So I think that was one challenge. And then I think another challenge was being a woman, particularly a Latina woman in the policy space in Washington, D.C. I'll never forget one of my first jobs after grad school. And I was in a conversation with my supervisor, and, you know, my supervisor, and I should also say, like, this is after finding my voice and figuring out, like, yes, I can have my opinions and I can be strong with my opinions and I can be vocal. And so anyway, being in the room with my supervisor and my supervisor saying to me, like, Kathy, do you know why I hire women? I was like, no, why? Why do you hire women? Like, tell me this thing. And he's like, because they're quiet. And had I known you were this feisty, I would have never hired you. And feisty is a word that is typically used particularly for Latina women. And so that, like, sent me down a spiral. But, you know, in this weird way, I also know that he then afterwards told me how much he respected me and valued my opinions and all of that. So anyway, it was like this weird standard that he had, which on one end, I was the only person who he respected and wanted honest opinions. But on the other hand, it was like too much for him to handle. So those, I think, are like two challenges. Again, one, navigating just very white spaces, and another one is being a Latina woman in the public policy space.
Thank you so much for your answers. I would like to speak a little briefly, me being also a Latina woman, like, hearing you guys speak about that rings so true to, like, my own personal experience, and I'm sure the future problems that I will probably encounter. But it is so reassuring to see powerful, successful women in this panel, and see where you guys started and where you guys are ending up now. For our next question, this is for Mr. Sanchez. Mr. Canedo and Ms. Triana, how was your transition from the undergraduate level to going into law school and or grad school, whichever one respectively applies?
So, well, I mean, it was extremely seamless because I stayed at the university. Once once I was approaching graduating undergrad, I had to make the decision, like everybody else who's looking to move on to postgraduate studies, was to decide what I was going to do or where I was going to go. And at that time, it was pretty. The only other place I wanted to go was actually Tulane, which is because only my father went to school there. And maybe I was thinking about going to Washington, D.C., only because the only reason why I wanted to the only reason I wanted to go to law school was only because I wanted to be in government and involved in politics. And then my goals at the time were to run for office. That was the reason why I wanted to go to law school, never to actually practice law. So because of my significant involvement there at the university, and there was a lot of momentum that I was kind of gaining at the time. Jose, he was, I mean, just so everybody knows, I mean, him and I are like brothers. He's his oldest son's godfather, so he knows these stories better than anybody. So him and I were just significantly involved, and so at that time, I made the decision that I wanted to, within the first couple of years, run for student body president. And I knew that the only way I could do that was going to law school at the University of Florida. And I also knew that I could not run the first year as a 1L because obviously it's your first year. So there's a lot of, it's very difficult, that transition period. So the answer and to stay there was pretty clear for me at that point. And also getting into law school, it was hard for me. It was a challenge. A lady by the name of Noemar Castro, I don't know if she's still at the university, but just a phenomenal mentor for me. And she really helped me have the courage to apply to UF Law, which at that point was very difficult. Now I think it's even worse, which is a good thing. So through her mentorship that I gained, because I was involved with HSA and all of that, I got to know her really well. So she really helped me and counseled me in understanding, okay, here's a process. These are the things that you need to do. So her mentorship helped me in order to make that transition very seamless into law school. So I graduate in 1999, in spring 99. And then I, not because I wanted, but I had a 6 to 8 month sabbatical. I started in spring of 2000. So those 8 months, those 6 months or so, I remained in Gainesville and I was working for the university, planning one of their big events that they would have there, introducing the football team and all some of the other teams. I don't think they have that event anymore. It's there at the O'Connell. So I was doing that, and I was also working alongside, I think it's the Cicerones, the ones who do the summer thing, orientation. I can't believe I've drawn a blank on that one. So anyways, that was my story. So it was pretty seamless, the transition.
I'll go next. I actually had a little bit of a different experience. Not that it wasn't seamless, I guess, but I actually took some time off between undergrad and law school. I wasn't sure if I really wanted to go to law school. I took the LSAT summer before senior year, before fourth year of college of UF, and I did okay. I did well, but I just wasn't convinced. I did also get my bachelor's in political science, so it's what most people just assume you're going to go to law school. But I wasn't sure. And I wanted to actually get hands-on experience. I wanted to work at a law firm. And I did. So I graduated in May 2010, and I didn't start law school until 2012, fall 2012. And I worked at a wonderful firm, and I ended up loving it. I knew from working there that I actually did want to be an attorney, that I wanted to advocate for people, and I learned a lot. And there's nothing like getting experience if you're able to now while you're in school. If you could work at it during the summer, or even while you're still in school, get some experience at a law firm or with a lawyer to make sure that's something you actually want to do. Because I will say that once I did start law school, I realized that everything you learn in law school is not actually what you do in a law firm. It's completely different. I would say the hardest part of law school for me, especially 1L year, was the idea that I had no idea how I was doing, because you only get one exam at the end of the semester. So I really was not able to gauge whether I was understanding things, whether I was doing okay. Obviously, in college, you take quizzes, you take tests, you do essays, you submit things, you kind of have an idea of how you're doing in the class. But law school is a completely different ballgame. You have no idea how you're doing until that final test. And especially the first semester, it's very scary. But once you get over that first semester, and even the first year, I would say your 2L and 3L are not a breeze, but much easier. And I would even say a little enjoyable. So that was my experience.
All right, I'll go fast. So my transition over to law school, the path certainly wasn't planned. I was a business major, and I thought that I was kind of going to stay on that path. And to be quite honest, when I was getting ready to graduate, I didn't really know what I was going to do. And I found a great program. I hope they still have it at UF. It's the Masters in International Business program, the MAIB program. And that was really a great opportunity for me to carry on with my business studies, and also travel, because I was always interested in business and international affairs. So while I was doing that and taking that year to take a little more time to think about it, to learn a little more, I decided that I did want to give law school a shot, especially going towards the corporate law or international law route. And it worked out really great. I loved it. And even though I'm actually in a different field of law now, all the lessons that I learned in undergrad and grad school, even just learning how to study, just having that year to be a little more mature and a little more wise when you go into something like law school, it was really helpful for me. I know a lot of people go right into it, directly into law school, but for me, just having that year, even if it was studying, just having a little bit of time to think about it and to just figure out what your next moves are, that was really helpful for me.
Thank you all for those awesome answers. Really great insight into that possible transition from undergrad to higher education. This next question is, I think, one of the most invaluable ones that we have tonight, and it is for everyone. And that is, what would you prioritize if you were an undergraduate student today? So kind of like a letter to your younger self, maybe?
I'll go first. So I've got teenage kids. One of them is a senior right now in high school, and he's getting ready to go to, he's doing his journey to figure out where he's going to go to school. And what I tell my kids all the time is what I would tell the students, the undergrads as well, is you, and I think you'll see a theme here from everybody that's on this panel, is you have to get involved in your college, in your community, in your program, and say yes to as many different experiences as you can. I know, studying takes time and grades are important, but looking back, no one ever asked me what my GPA was in college and in my master's. They want to know about, my time at student government, my time, working with different campus organizations, and those connections and networks that you create from that time. And so that's what I would have all students prioritize as they're going through their graduate years.
If I can piggyback on what Jose said, so I have a 21-year-old daughter and a 19-year-old son who are transitioning into official adulthood, right? And what I would say is, yes, it's definitely so important to get those experiences and to make those contacts because you never know who you meet, who knows someone that can be the person that, gives you that opportunity. And the second thing is, I'll tell you what I tell my kids. Find something that you're passionate about. And it's a cliche, right? If you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. And if you can follow that path, because careers are strange. You think, oh, I want to go to law school, I want to be a lawyer, I want to make X amount of money. But if you hate it, you hate it. So I wouldn't say necessarily focusing on what you think the outcome might be as far as, your lifestyle down the road, but if just follow your passion, find something that you really truly enjoy, that you can get up in the morning and just be like, man, I'm so excited to do what I'm doing. That's a huge I wish I could go back, and I love what I'm doing now, but the road that got me here, if I could tell my 18-year-old self, is that love what you do and do what you love.
I guess I'll go next. I will also piggyback on what Mr. Sanchez said and what Judge Martinez Conziazzi said. I think making connections is so important. I live in Miami now, and I cannot tell you how many times you never know who you're going to run into, and these are all people that I met through HSA, or I met because I was involved with HHM or student government, all these things that I did in college. And also, I want to go back to what I said earlier with the previous question. I wish that when I was in college, I would have gone out and tried to find some sort of internship in law or done something like that too. So I probably wouldn't have had to take those 2 years off to figure out if I really wanted to go to law school. I could have just gone straight into it. So I know everybody, when you're in college, you have so many things going on. You're in so many activities. You're doing so many things. You also want to have fun. But if you can, go out and try to get real hands-on experience to figure out what it is that you want to do when you finish college. I think that's my advice.
I'll take a stab at it. That question is it's difficult because everybody's circumstances is so different. And as it relates to my circumstance at that period of time, there would be some very minor things I would tell my younger self that I had to do, but probably 90+% of what I did, I would do again. And so, of course, being involved was a significant thing for me. Academics was probably, my attention span on academics was probably 25%. Another 25% was student government. Another 25% was student organizations, HSA, Columbia Association at the time. And the other 25% was spent promoting and running a small business at the time. So my time was very, but I had fortunately I had good circumstances to be able to do all of those things, but not everybody has that opportunity. And so, I have a very, very close friend of mine who, unfortunately, she had a very difficult time there. Her mom was in jail, her father had been deported. Then she had to take care of her 10-year-old son. A 10-year-old brother, and the sister. So he was 10 at the time, and and then the sister, who unfortunately passed away several years after graduating from UF in a car accident. She was also living with her. So literally, here she is, 21, 22. She's at the university. She's working, basically 2 full-time jobs. And her circumstances were very different. And one of the things that she would always tell me was like, man, Gil, I wish I could get as involved as you've been, because I see all of the things that you're doing and all the connections that you're making, and all of the experience that you're getting. And so despite that, though, she did find some opportunities to get involved. She likes speech pathology, so she got involved in an organization there. She was very much into community service. Alpha something, they have like a, right there in the Turlington, they have like a booth there, a permanent thing, probably not anymore. But, and anyways, despite her circumstances, she was still able to find some time for her to be able to, you know, pursue what she loved, get to know other people. So, so yes, of course, getting involved in all of the things that you are interested in. I always say this: make your mistakes at the university. Okay, so that way you don't make the mistakes once you're out in the real world, because sometimes you just don't get a second chance. So whatever your circumstances are, and everybody has different circumstances, do the best that you can to do other things outside of academia, in order to, you know, refine those skills, make those connections, but also but don't feel bad if you're unable to do all of it all of the time, because, you know, maybe you do have to have 1 or 2 jobs on campus. Maybe you are taking care of a family member who's there. So really, circumstance really dictates, you know, your ability to go above and beyond, you know, the academics part of it.
I'll go next. So I think one thing that's really important is having just a good balance of work and free time. I think that's something important to establish in undergrad. You know, sometimes you can do a little bit too much of one or the other. You know, it's an amazing time being in college, but you know, you want to make sure that you're also prioritizing your studies, but you don't want to do too much that you get burnt out, because being a lawyer is an incredibly rewarding career, but you could get burnt out if you're not taking some free time to yourself, time to step away from the computer, things like that. So being able to establish a good balance, I think, is an important priority. And also for me personally, you know, looking back at undergrad, I wish I was a little bit more involved in things like La Casita, for example, and playing up a little bit more and honing in on my Spanish speaking skills. It really wasn't until law school that I got more involved in some projects that were benefiting the Spanish speaking community and things of that nature. And sometimes, you know, for example, living in South Florida, you know, you just take for granted the fact that you're a Spanish speaker and how much of a skill that is, because, you know, in somewhere like Miami, it's practically, you know, everybody speaks Spanish. But for me, when I lived in DC, Washington, DC for 10 years, before I came to the job that I'm at now, I was working for the Department of Justice. And a big reason for the way I got in was by being a Spanish speaker. So just honing in on those skills, those things that can separate you from others, that's really important.
That is a great point on balance, something I've never been able to accomplish myself. So great, great point there. I would say one thing is there are tons of leadership type conferences, and I went to one conference called Leadership, which was out in Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. And I was able to create my life's mission statement there. And this mission statement has really helped to ground me, and it has guided almost every professional decision I've ever taken ever since I created that life mission statement. So it just has helped me to really organize myself and my thoughts when I have to make these types of career choices. And so would highly just encourage people to take time for that type of development, for self-development in that way, to reflect upon what are your priorities? How do you want to see the world? How do you want to help the world? Because I think that type of reflection time is extremely important. And I know not many of us, personally myself, make enough time to really sit and reflect with my own thoughts and figure out what actually makes me happy, and how do I, like, what type of information do I want to use to drive my life forward.
All right, I think that's everyone. Again, thank you so much to our panelists for those amazing responses. I can personally definitely attest to the getting involved early on. I feel like for me personally, one of the orgs named MLP, which is involved, like affiliated with HSA, it's a mentorship program that really allowed me to get out of my comfort zone and be willing to pursue that outside involvement, and it really helped me. So I can definitely attest to that, and just being willing to meet new people has really helped me develop and just become a better overall individual. But with that, we're gonna move on to our next question. This question is for Mr. Gonzalez, Ms. Triana, and Judge Martinez Scansinani. So what did you enjoy, or what do you enjoy the most and least about your current profession or job?
I guess I'll go first. What I enjoy the most, so I guess kind of to explain what I do, I represent homeowners when, for example, a hurricane comes and their roof flies off, or there's a plumbing leak and everything is flooded in their home. In Florida, you could actually sue your own insurance company if the insurance company does not pay the claim or they underpay the claim. What I enjoy the most is when I actually get to help people. I know, believe it or not, most lawyers, all they care about is money, but no, I actually enjoy being able to give, my clients the money they need to fix their homes. Because when you think about it, everyone, what's the American dream? To buy a home, to live in a house, to purchase a property. So to these people, their homes are everything. And when you pay insurance and it's very expensive, and when you hear that when something actually happens and you don't get your money, you're like, what? So it's very rewarding to hear, and I love getting the pictures of the new roofs and my new bathroom. It makes me very happy. I will say, since I have my own firm, I am a solo practitioner. For me personally, the hardest part of my job is that I'm always on. Even if I'm on vacation, I can't just not look at my phone, because I may miss some sort of deadline, or I may miss somebody filed an MSJ or that's a motion for summary judgment. I always have to be on. That sucks, but there's also a lot of positives about being on my own, have a lot of flexibility. I'm able to, do things like be with my son for music class on Friday at 10:45 in the morning. And those are things that other people can't do. So there's pros and cons. Yeah, it's my response.
I guess I can go next if that's okay. So what I love most, and I'm sorry, my internet seems it's a little bit unstable. So if I cut out, I apologize. But truly what I love most is I consider our courthouse is second chance court, where children who've been removed from their families because there's abuse, abandonment, or neglect, we keep children safe and we help families get back together, and if we can return children safely, or we have children be adopted if they can't be returned safely to their parents. And so at that very basic level, the family unit, I truly believe that we're doing the work that is making a significant impact in our community. It's not an easy job, I will say. For lawyers or aspiring lawyers, I do lose sleep at night because I'm ultimately the decision maker, and there's some tough decisions, but it's a very rewarding place to be, when you see the success stories and you see the families come back together, and you help children, and you deal with mental illness and substance misuse and all of that. It's an amazing effort in the children's court. As far as what I like least, I will say for any aspiring judges, you know, we are nonpartisan, so we effectively have, you know, a gag over our mouths for a lot of things. You don't get to have opinions about public opinions, at least about different things. You just really, it's a little bit isolating in that respect, where you have to kind of step back and maybe you have strong opinions about certain things, but you know, we're impartial arbiters in any given setting, and so it, it, it changes your life and you know, your family's life, because even things that your spouse might say or your kids might say could have a reflection on you. And so it's not the easiest work, but I truly wouldn't trade it for anything, because I do believe, you know, serving, and I'm in the 11th Circuit, we're in Miami-Dade County. It's a huge population. It's so diverse, and you just see so many different people, and I love serving the people of Miami-Dade County, because you just see so many things, and so, you know, it's just an amazingly rewarding position that I have the privilege to do. So
I guess I'm next. So I get to work for Mickey Mouse. He's my boss. So that's a lot of fun. Every day is a new magical adventure at Walt Disney World. So I get to experience a lot of really neat moments, watching, you know, guests come to the parks and all the work that we do in the community, you know, supporting organizations and nonprofits and literally changing people's lives and kind of watching, you know, wishes come true for kids who come to our parks and have, you know, like Make-A-Wish kids. That part of my job is absolutely incredible, and I'm very fortunate to be able to do that. What I least like about my current job, it's kind of ironic because I'm a lobbyist. What I enjoy the least is dealing with politicians and elected officials, which is what I have to do on a daily basis. But you know, being able to work for Disney makes up for all of that.
Amazing. I can imagine it being very difficult to be objective as a judge. And it's got to be incredibly difficult because there's a lot of emotions involved, I'm sure. And some of the work that you guys are doing is incredible. So a lot of people think of, you know, a lot of sleazy, you know, they get portrayed in such a negative way. But it sounds like the work that everyone's doing is very rewarding. So it's really, 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 really interesting to hear about all of that. So I know Ladie said the other question was very important, but I personally think the most important one is, how are you going to fund your postgraduate studies? So this answers for Mr. Canedo, Mr. Sanchez, and Mrs. Valle Palacios. If you guys can give us your thoughts.
I can pick us off. So I after undergrad, I went to Peace Corps. I served in Peace Corps. And so I was lucky enough to get a $6,000 stipend, which is not a lot when you're talking about graduate studies. And so but I was able to hold on to some of that and use that to pay for some of my tuition. In addition to that, so I went to grad school. I got a master's in public policy and then a master's in higher education. And I was lucky enough to get a scholarship from the graduate school. And it was a scholarship for low-income students of color. And so, and I think it's particularly, I was coming from Peace Corps, and so they were like, okay, and it's also for people who show leadership, right? And so, speaking of all my undergraduate leadership, and then plus Peace Corps, like all of that just kind of helped to come together to say, okay, let's give her a scholarship. So it funded, I think, more than half of my public policy degree. And then it also, and then the School of Education for my other degree, they funded all of my my whole degree for that. And so it was just amazing. And then it was plus cost of living, so just not just the tuition, but cost of attendance. So I was able to use some of that money to supplement the other part of my public policy degree. And then in addition to that, I took out some loans, but I was very lucky that I actually didn't have to take out a lot of loans to get my graduate degrees. And so there are, all of that to say is that there are some graduate programs that do provide scholarships to students. And so I would encourage you to find those programs based on whatever field you want to go into, because they do exist. They're out there. And it's so important that when you're talking to your future advisors or whenever you're applying, that you're asking these types of questions about what does their financial aid policies look like and what type of scholarships are available. And you can ask that on the front end of the conversation. It doesn't have to be even after you apply and after you get accepted. Like, these are questions that you could be asking financial aid officers before you even get on their campus, before you even accept, before you even apply. Like, do not be shy about that, because there is money out there. It is available. You just have to like figure out where it is and tap into it.
I'll go next. Great advice about the scholarships and resources. There certainly are a lot of that out there. For me, I funded my studies with student loans. You know, it's not always easy, and it can weigh pretty heavy on you. But, you know, between that and trying to work summer jobs during undergrad and getting summer, summer clerkships, summer legal intern positions while you're in law school was something very helpful. But yeah, mostly just trying to plan ahead as much as you can. If you already have an idea that you're going to go into post-grad studies and you're thinking about going to law school or anything like that, trying to plan ahead and save up a little bit for something like that. And definitely, just to piggyback on the last comments about all the resources that are available.
So my number one resource was loans. And so that was pretty much 100% of how I was able to go through undergrad and law school. And I always say, never, if you need to take out a loan to go to any postgraduate, I wouldn't think twice about it. It's absolutely worth it, and you'll thank yourself down the line. So don't ever let money be an issue from that standpoint. At the same time, I realize that it is important to understand, and if you can mitigate getting loans or at least lowering it, then there are different ways of doing that, and they've been mentioned here, which is scholarships. Kathy said, I mean, do your due diligence, follow up on those resources that are at the university. There are lots of other organizations out there, nonprofits, who are looking to give money to Hispanics and females and students that are looking to move on. So take the time and do that. And also academically as well. So if you have really great grades, then you'll have probably a better chance at getting some scholarships from the postgraduate degrees universities or from other organizations that are looking for that. So do your due diligence on that. And then obviously the other way to help fund your schooling is getting a job, which is difficult to do that once you are in law school or and you're doing your master's. It's a little bit more challenging, but I've seen people do that. I kind of did that myself. Again, doing the promotions on the weekends. So that was additional income. Now that money never went towards paying tuition. It was more towards funding the business and a lifestyle that I enjoyed at the time. So, but that was a choice that I made in doing that. So there are different ways, but I would say get loans if you can, or if you need them, do it, and then from there figure out ways to mitigate getting a lot of loans through scholarships and through working, a combination of those things.
Wonderful. Yeah, I would definitely agree that there's nothing better than investing in yourself. So I know it's difficult and student loans can be very overbearing, but yeah, absolutely. So with that, I want to thank the amazing answers that we've gotten tonight, the panelists. and the students for submitting such thought-provoking questions. We don't have too much time, but we would like to open up for a brief Q&A. So if anyone has a question, if they want to raise their hand, and yeah, we'll open it up for questions. Anyone?
Okay, yeah, so I had a question. Hello. First of all, thank you all so much for everything that you've been able to share today. And little brief intro, my name is Danny Alonso, and I'm the current president of HSA. And one of my questions is, as a prospective law student, how were you able to kind of narrow in on what field you wanted to practice? Because I know you all talked about how much you love kind of the area that you practice in, but how did you kind of get to that space where you felt really comfortable sticking to that one field?
I can jump in with my personal experience because I went to law school swearing to everyone that I was going to be a prosecutor. And I thought for sure criminal law is the way to go. In the summer I got married. I actually got married the second year of law school, and I interned. I did an externship with one of our professors, and I was able to do some internship in Miami while I was, getting ready to get married and doing my wedding. And I spent the summer in the jails, and that cured me of it, quite frankly, because it just wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And so I use it as an example because I know that there are plenty of attorneys and, whether they're paid or unpaid, and it's whether a few weeks of just kind of dipping your toe into an area and just kind of understanding what this means. I was a family lawyer before. For example, if anyone didn't become a judicial intern, we even have high school interns that sit with us, and you get exposure. So personally, you want to get as much exposure as possible into different areas, and you'll very quickly, at least I found, my husband's a lawyer, and he does the exact opposite of anything I practice, and he could not imagine one day doing family law. So there's so many opportunities in law school, and I think just getting at least a little bit of exposure early on by way of internships or part-times, or even judicial internships, is an amazing way to go. And that's one thing that I wish I had done, even earlier, because I think it would have changed some of the steps I took to get to where I ended up. That was my personal experience.
Thank you. So we do have one more question, but was curious if one more person would like to answer before we move to Lucia. She's got a question. Anybody else want to put that topic?
About the question that was just asked?
Yeah, correct.
Yes. Let me chime in on that, because my path was a little bit I guess unusual, and I like to share it. Like I mentioned, I went to law school not wanting to practice law, so I just wanted to go into government. So I never had really this specific area of law that I wanted to get into. But when I was in law school, and because I was running a business, I gravitated towards taking additional classes aside from just your normal contracts course in 1L, but taking more advanced classes in the realm of business law. And so the things that I was learning there, I was automatically applying to the current business that I was operating along with Jose and another partner that we had. So I was using that real world kind of experience, using academics and applying it immediately. But again, I was never thinking about becoming a business attorney or anything like that. And so finally, when I graduate, I was brought into this startup in North Carolina, was over there for about 6 months or so. And at that point, I hadn't taken the bar, and that then folded. And then at that point, I'm like, well, I better go back to Florida, and I better go take the bar and practice law. I need to make money somehow now. So at that point, I'm like, okay, I better go practice law. And so at that point, this goes down to connections. My first law degree, or my first legal position, was owed to Jose Gonzalez. He was working at the time with Associated Industries of Florida. And I said, Jose, you know, you have a lot of contact with attorneys by virtue of his job. And I said, you know, do you think you can find something for me? And sure enough, I mean, literally this happened within 48 hours. I had a job interview and I was hired on the spot. And that was all thanks to Jose helping me with that. And the job that I did, which I never thought in a million years I would do, was workers' comp defense. So I was working for the evil insurance companies, you know, taking depositions of injured individuals on the job. And the worst thing was, because I was bilingual, my boss would put me to do the depositions of those that were Hispanic. So when I'm there, you know, grilling these poor individuals as nicely as possible, you know, they're like literally during the breaks, they're telling me like, ay, por favor, ¿por qué me haces así? Ayúdeme, you know, and I'm like, oh my God, this is horrible, but you know, I have to put my poker face on. So, but it was unbelievable experience that I gained. I was there for about 2 years, gained a significant amount of litigation experience, which later served me very well, which to this day, now I'm doing completely different areas of law in multiple different areas. So if you do not know what area of law you want to practice going into law school, don't worry about it. Like what the judge said, do different things. And even after you graduate from law school and you still don't know what you want to do, you're going to end up probably doing whoever's going to pay you money to and get some experience. And then from there, you'll decide whether you want to stay with that profession, you know, stay with that particular area of law, or you want to move on to something else. I do want to mention one huge resource. It's called the Washington Center. The Washington Center is a nonprofit based out of Washington, D.C. that gives or that facilitates internships in Washington, D.C. And it's something that I did between my junior and senior year. And even though it was government-based, it was through that experience that I had with Senator Bob Graham at the time that actually had me officially decide that I was going to apply for law school. So wanted to mention that organization. I found that on a flyer when I was walking through Turlington, and absolutely incredible organization. So students, if you're out there, look it up. The Washington Center, they're still around. I get their emails. It's a great resource for you to get experience in different parts of government.
Thank you all. I really
Ladis, can I just
Yeah.
pitch one more thing?
Yes.
Also, the Washington Center is fantastic. Congressional Hispanic Caucus Institute, if folks are interested in internships, I'd also recommend taking a look there. They place people in agencies and on the Hill, both in the Senate and in the House of Reps. So highly recommend that as another place if you're interested in politics and policy.
Awesome. And Jose is in the chat saying he can personally vouch. Thank you. I see that it's 8:03. I know we had a couple of hands that were still up. Lucia, I believe, is a student at UF right now. I don't know if you'd like to, if your question is brief, if you'd like to ask it, or if you'd like to put it in the chat, or if we want to wrap up for tonight since it is 8:03. I want to be mindful of everyone's time.
Yeah, it was just going to be a really brief question for Judge Martinez Scanziani. I just wanted to ask, like, what was like the catalyst that made you choose becoming a judge rather than I'm sorry if I didn't hear this before and you already repeated yourself. I did join a little late, but what was that like catalyst that made you choose between judge and attorney, like choosing what you were going to do in the legal field?
So no, I didn't answer that question before, and I get asked that question quite a bit. And you know, it's gonna sound very, very cheesy. I'm not going to lie, but from a very early age, I felt this strong desire to be, you know, and you have the immature kind of view of like, oh, that's the pinnacle of a lawyer's career, which by the way, it's not. I mean, there's so many paths to be successful as a lawyer. You know, there's several lawyers here, and you know, and so it's just for me, it was a desire to serve. You know, I was at a point in my career where I felt like I had done everything that I wanted to do as a private lawyer. And I thought that I could do something different in serving. And that was just my heart. You know, that was my heart. It was to serve. So, but I, you know, from a little kid, I had always thought the idea of like, oh, that'd be cool. You know, you're the judge. I'm the oldest of 5 kids. You know, just make all the decisions, tell everybody what to do. Which, by the way, it's not really how it works out as a judge. It's a very different view from the bench, but it was really more about service at that point because I had done what I wanted to do personally in my private law firm life.
Thank you. I'm sorry for going over time.
No problem. We are going to go ahead and wrap up for tonight. We're really appreciative of our panelists. I know some students weren't able to join because of everything going on campus, but having this recording is truly invaluable. I think that the conversation was awesome. The questions students submitted before were very specific, and they're really looking forward to getting this information if they're not already here. So with that, I just want to say thank you from all of us. I know that some information in the chat was shared about how to reach HSA and AHA. And we will be sending out more information this week in terms of mentorship if you're interested in being a mentor or being a mentee. So hopefully we can continue this connection, this conversation going. And we are very hopeful to have our next Prepárate Caiman event in February after finals and everything gets wrapped up. So please be on the lookout for that. And I just want to say thank you so much to the students. This would not have even been an event without them. This is all their idea. Danny, Mariana, Armando, Gabby, Rachel, which I know is on as well. Thank you so much. And Jonathan, it's my person. For if not, this would not happen at all. So thank you everyone, panelists. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed hearing all of your answers. I'm an attorney as well, so I'm like absorbing it too. So thank you so much. And I hope everyone has a great night.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Go Gators.
So much for your time.